Welcome to the One Advantage podcast, exploring the intersections of peer power, culture, and agility. Your hosts, Mike Richardson, Jason Richmond, and Leo Bottari, co-founders of the One Advantage community of practice and advantage peer groups.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the One Advantage podcast with myself and my co-founder, Jason Richmond. Leo Bottari is not with us today. I have no idea where he is, Jason. maybe we can see if we can track down where on earth we think he is. We're going to talk again, everybody. This will be a part 2 of putting me in the hot seat around everything agility. We did part 1 with Leo last time. We're doing part 2 with Jason today. He's got a smile on his face. I'm a bit worried here, people. He's gonna put me through my paces. But before we do that, Jason, how are you? Where are you? And what have you been up to?
I'm good. I've been spending my time, working with clients and customers across the country. Right now, I'm actually in the U.S. Virgin Islands, Mike. I'm sitting in my office down in the U.S. Virgin Islands, and
Thomas, right? That's a tough duty, but someone's got to do it.
Well, it's a little bit warmer than Colorado right now.
Oh, beautiful. And yeah, you've been doing some great work with some great clients recently, I think, right?
Yeah, we have. Just got done doing a large offsite with an HR group, coming out of the pandemic and structuring a hybrid workforce, figuring out their strategy, actually creating a new strategy and the rollout plan. Really exciting stuff. And I'm smiling because a huge part of that was Agile leadership. How do we be Agile and recreating, restructuring who we are and how we have to serve the organization. It was fascinating. It was really a good couple days.
Yeah, Agile HR, Agile talent management, Agile recruitment, retention, development, Agile work environments, hybrid, remote, et cetera, et cetera. It's I'm sure we'll talk about this, Jason. I love to put the word Agile in front of anything, and the key is obviously when you do that, what core concepts have to come with that word. So I'm sure we'll get into that a little bit. I do believe Leo is on a whistle-stop road show this week from city to city to city, one different city every day, doing his peer innovation workshops for CEOs. I believe he's in Seattle today, actually, finishing off his week. His feet have barely touched the ground this week. His work is in such high demand, everybody, that he is pretty much every week. We're lucky when he's able to be here with us. Pretty much every week he's all over the place. I took some time off, Jason. We were just chatting about it. I was in Chicago with my eldest son and his girlfriend and her parents and all this kind of stuff. And we had a blast for the long Easter weekend. And
good stuff.
We're both working on an ebook right now, you and I and Leo, which we're finishing off. We're very excited about that, everybody. Some of the things that we've been talking about around peer power, around culture, and around agility that we touched on last time and this time are very much in that book. So watch this space. And we've even got a little endorsement coming through from someone we won't mention right now, but a Hall of Fame corporate CEO loves our work and is giving us an endorsement. So watch this space, everybody.
And that our ebook there will get across the finish line here within days. Mike, and be out there, be published in days, and then we're let everyone know we're going to be in the studio creating some online courses and curriculum around these disciplines and how they come together.
Exactly, and we're doing that in June, everybody. And we're going to be doing it once a quarter, so you can expect to see the production line here start to spool up, and a lot of great stuff coming down the path. So last time, Jason, Leo put me through my paces on agility. We won't necessarily do a recap of all of that because, of course, people can go back and listen to the previous episode. But what do you want to know, Jason, about everything agility?
Well, you did. And the last episode, you really talked about C2C, and that's conversation flow to cash flow. And
Yeah.
and Mike, I know people can go back and listen to that, but I think it really sets the stage for our conversation, that could take us right into this concept of VUCA. So do you mind taking 90 seconds, 2 minutes, just to kind of give us, just bridge us into this? And really, I think it's so relevant because VUCA has rocked my world on a daily basis in my client's world. And I think it's a great bridge right into where we're going.
Yeah, well, let's start there, actually. Everybody, do you remember, I don't know, when was that? I don't know, a few years ago, maybe it was 5 years ago already. There was a movie that came out called The Secret. And there was, I think, a book that went with it, and there was a lot of PR and stuff. Well, guess what? A movie literally just came out, like in the last 30, 60, 90 days, called It's VUCA. And it's kind of similar to The Secret. And I think even the subtitle of the movie, It's VUCA, is The Secret to Success in the 21st Century or something like that. And it says something like, there's a name for what you're going through. It's VUCA. And everybody, VUCA stands for volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. It's a military term that came out of the Army College, the War College. I think in the 80s it was when it first emerged.
87.
Yeah, in 1987. And, it is now widely used in the commercial world because it describes what we're experiencing so much. We are in an accelerating world of VUCA, volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity, disruptive change, which many pundits these days, Jason, say, not least of all technologically, is going to go exponential. In fact, it already is. So it's like everybody, if you think you've experienced VUCA, you really haven't, because you haven't seen anything yet. It's coming at us. And so, because VUCA has been an emerging concept over the last couple of decades, agility has risen up as a body of wisdom, and we are now in an exploding universe of agility inspiration. And so my work, Jason's work, and Leo's work, which intersects very powerfully. Jason's last book, actually called Culture Ignited, which I have here if you're watching the video. The subtitle is The 5 Disciplines of Adaptive Leadership. And of course, that's what we mean by agile, agility, adaptability. We mean adaptive leadership. So there's been this rising tide of a body of wisdom. And what Jason and Leo and I try to do is we try to sort of cut through the hype and the complexity and the clutter and get to the essence. And one of the places that I ended up, I think I was saying to Leo last time, I think I'm a bit of a slow study, Jason, because it took me 35 years to get there. I got there about 5 years ago. Was what Jason said, this concept of C2C, conversation flow to cash flow. And in other words, what I like to say to people is, we used to say that cash flow is king, not anymore. Yeah, back in the 80s and the 90s when things were slow moving. But now in this fast-paced, warp speed, whiplash, VUCA world that we live in, no. Conversation flow is king. Cash flow is just a way of keeping score. Now, at this point, people normally say, what do you mean conversation flow? You mean we just sit around and talk? Well, no, of course not. What we mean by conversation flow is the unfolding flow of how you link and accumulate 4 things: thoughts, questions, decisions, and actions. And the actions part of that opens the door to an agile mindset. Agile mindset people know that agility is a contact sport. You have to contact reality. The way you do that is you take real actions to get reality into the conversation, giving you feedback about what's working and what's not working. And then you iterate and adjust and adapt from there. So Mike, C2C, Jason.
But this reality is what brought the 3 of us together.
It is.
What brought the power of peers and the agility methodology, the agile methodology, and then of course putting them together to form a culture that performs in today's reality, driven by VUCA.
Because everybody, it's all driven by VUCA, and in our respective ways, Leo, Jason, myself, in some way, shape, or form, we've all been saying we need to change the conversation that we're having as a team, that we're having as leaders, that we're having as an organization. We need a different QQC, as I call it, quantity, quality, and cadence of conversation flow. Because if we can get the trajectory of the QQC of our conversation flow going onwards and upwards, then our QQC of our cash flow, the quantity, quality, and cadence of our cash flow can also go on the same trajectory. And I've got a cat. I've got a cat here in the podcast. If you're watching the video, everybody, I had one of those Zoom meeting moments where a cat just walked across the viewfinder of the camera.
Mike, I love what you're saying here, because in people's world, well, how does this relate to me? I'm a mid-level manager. I'm a leader within an organization. I lead a business unit or a team, and from a high level strategy level, how does this impact me? Well, in my opinion, and I do this on a daily basis with clients, it impacts you by the way you work. From the way you meet, from the way you're meeting with your people, your team. It impacts you by the way you coach. Right? It impacts with you how you plan and how you time, how you organize. So it's impacting all the way down to the daily task, all the way down to the individual contributor every day.
Exactly. And in particular, where we go with people, where I try to go is to get clear about what's the quantity, quality, and cadence of conversation flow that you're having one-to-one with people, with your team, with your boss, with your peers, with your customers, with your suppliers, with your supply chain, to inflect the conversation flow where you want your cash flow to go. The cat's back, but we'll deal with this. Testing my agility.
Great.
How do you change that? Now, that's what takes us into some of the places that we can go today, Jason. It's like, well, okay, how is my conversation flow being challenged? How do I need to change it? Get out of here. Come on. I'm busy. Can't you see I'm busy? How do you need to change it? And how do you get it, kicking into gear the way you need to? And that's where we go into this idea of what I call the 5 attributes of agility to change your relationship with. And before we go there, though, that's kind of where you also went in your book. You've got these 5 disciplines of adaptive leadership, and your 5 things and my 5 things really start to matrix together beautifully.
They do, Mike. And I get asked all the time, what's adaptive leadership, right? And it follows very close to Agile methodology, but it's the ability for leaders, for us to flex our leadership styles and behaviors in any circumstance, right? Yeah. And we've already talked about the way we work has changed, the way we lead has changed. The way we coach, the way we meet, the way we communicate. If we don't change as leaders or managers in an organization, we'll stay in chaos.
Yeah.
And we'll never get out of that chaos. The 5 disciplines you talk about starts with, the shared purpose. And that really incorporates not only your attributes, but Leo's methodology around the power of peer and having groups share that same vision. It talks about trust and authenticity within the organization, performance management, the importance of managing performance today, and that's changed, developing your team, and also creating a culture of environment. So they do really align well, with the agility attributes. The other thing that I think is critical to bring up, and I wrote a whole chapter on this, was that coming out of crisis, coming out of what we came out in the pandemic or any type of business crisis that we're coming out of, there's opportunity.
Yeah.
So as C-level and strategists and upper level leaders take a look at business crises, they need to really peel it back and look for the opportunity. And talking about VUCA as being a disruptor, I believe, I'm strong believe that disruption equals opportunity.
Exactly.
And finding that opportunity and capitalizing on it using the 5 attributes using the agility methodology is critical.
Yeah, I love what you're saying here, everybody. So, VUCA is full of threat if you're not agile, but it's full of opportunity if you are agile.
Yeah.
And I love Jason's 5 disciplines of adaptive leadership because they intersect so beautifully with what we're going to talk about now, which is the 5 attributes of agility to change your relationship with, so that you can find the opportunity in the face of VUCA and avoid the threat. And Jason already mentioned the first attribute of agility to change your relationship with is my favorite. This is all mentioned in the ebook that's coming out, by the way. The number one problem in business these days is chaos. Do you see that much, Jason, with your clients?
I get asked this all the time by you, by Leo, by all my partners, and even our team members. And when we're working with clients, one of the subconscious behaviors that I'm seeing so much of is just reaction.
Yeah.
Which is driving uncertainty and chaos. So we're dealing with that on a daily basis. And chaos isn't a bad thing as long as it's handled in the right way.
So that's what we mean, everybody, by changing a relationship with chaos. You are not going to get chaos to go away. It's only going to get worse in this accelerating VUCA world. But you can fundamentally change your relationship with it because there are 2 kinds of chaos. There's disorganized chaos, where you're constantly behind the curve, reacting, trying to catch up. And there's organized chaos, where you're in the flow and you're proacting, you're preempting. It's chaotic. Things are fast moving, but there's a world of difference between being in the flow of organized chaos and in the sort of frenetic, frustrating burnout of disorganized chaos. And, we educate you about the difference between the 2. We use metaphors and analogies for you to really understand it. But you know it implicitly, because in the driving seat of your car, you are in the flow of organized chaos. If you weren't, it wouldn't end well on a very frequent basis. And on a very frequent basis, it does end well because you're in the flow of organized chaos, not disorganized chaos. Mm-hmm. And so the question we pose is, so you have the skills. When you park in the lot outside your office and walk inside, why don't you take those skills in with you? Because you implicitly have them, Jason, correct?
Yeah, correct. I'm 100% in agreement with that.
Yeah.
So how do you do that? How do you start looking at chaos?
Yeah, so it's exactly. So, that's one of the pillars that we will be doing a deeper dive into in the ebook, and then with our online training courses and those kinds of things, and really inviting you, everybody, to step up as the chief chaos coach in your business, coaching your people, your team, your organization, your peers from disorganized chaos to organized chaos, because it is a world of difference. And by the way, if you don't step up to be the chief chaos coach, trust me, nobody else will. And things will stay the same, won't they, Jason?
Well, or go backwards.
or get worse and go backwards. That's right.
Or plateau and maybe roll back. Absolutely. You also talk a lot about triage. And that's going to be another role within an organization from a leadership standpoint. And to me, it's interlocked with chaos, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Triage is the antidote to chaos.
Yeah.
And we've heard, how many times have we heard the word triage used over the last 2 or 3 years with the COVID pandemic? Because triage is a word that gets used when the demand for resources massively exceeds supply in a real-time unfolding high-stakes journey of a situation like a pandemic, like a hospital that is overwhelmed with incoming patients. It doesn't have enough PPE or doctors or beds or respiratory equipment to go around. And we have no choice except to triage or fighting a wildfire or an aircraft accident or an ER room, in a normal situation, or a pilot, captain and co-pilot in the cockpit of an aircraft.
Yeah.
And indeed, you in the driving seat of your car, you are beautifully triaging in the driving seat of your car. Now, again, there's 2 different types of triage. There's partial triage, where most people are stuck. They're so busy fighting fires that they're not seeing the next fires coming, preventing those next fires coming, if not installing a fire prevention system, a sprinkler system, because they're doing partial triage versus full triage, which is we are fully situationally aware. We have the big picture in mind. We know the full agenda of what we've got to be doing. We can't possibly tackle all of it. No. So we have no choice except to triage, but we're doing so in the context of full situational awareness, not partial situational awareness. And we see this all the time, don't we, Jason, with teams and leaders where they're stuck in partial triage.
And that's what I meant by reactional behaviors.
Yeah.
We're reacting to the moment. It's almost like when you're listening to somebody and all you're doing is listening to respond instead of really listening to understand. And I see that behavior on a daily basis with the people we're working with, and that's one key leadership blind spot that people don't realize they have until they're in a situation where it becomes an awareness.
Yeah. And, everybody, I just flew to Chicago and back. And, if I'd been going on board the plane and I'm about to turn right to go get my seat, and I look left into the cockpit and I overhear the pilot and the co-pilot saying, you know what, I'm feeling a little overwhelmed today. I'm feeling a little bit like I'm in disorganized chaos. I think the best we can do today is partial triage. I'm going to do a 180 and get off that plane. Because we couldn't possibly contemplate partial triage from a pilot, from an ER doctor, from a firefighter. You can't possibly contemplate it in the driving seat of your car. It's not going to end well. So again, we have these skills. How do we take them in with us when we park in the lot outside our office and walk inside, Jason?
So, again, we're hitting on problem. I could talk for hours, right? We could go for hours on chaos and triage, but there's some other aspects there, attributes that are pretty critical to get all this figured out.
Yeah, there are. And the next one is insight. Yep. And, insight is about learning. And of course, everybody, there's two ways to learn in contrast to each other: learning from hindsight versus learning from foresight. And look, I understand that we're going to learn from hindsight in business. We can't possibly learn everything from foresight. But every time we learn something from hindsight, I want you to look in the mirror and ask yourself, did I really need to learn that from hindsight? Where if I'd been doing fuller triage in more organized chaos, could I have learned that from foresight a lot more cheaply, a lot less expensively? Because learning from hindsight can be hideously expensive, Jason. And we see that a lot, don't we, with products and projects and strategic initiatives that just don't go well.
That's right. Yeah.
And after the fact,
with all great intentions too.
Yeah. And after the fact, everybody, we learn, oh gosh, we didn't think of this, we didn't think of that, yeah. We should have done that, we should have done the other. And then we're on the back foot again. And what you said earlier about, when you said or worse, I couldn't agree more with that. Yeah. You rarely stand still, everybody. You are either spiraling upwards or downwards, one of the two. And if you're in a downward spiral, it's just going to become like a blender, like a tornado. It's going to suck you into that vortex that if you're not careful, you'll really struggle to escape. Yeah. So don't get stuck there, everybody. And then actually the next one, Jason, is the next attribute of agility to change your relationship with is one of my favorites. It's luck. Yeah. And I love to talk about luck because it is one of the biggest factors of all in agility. And, what I like to explain to people is, but luck is a lot less random than you think. Kind of luck is where preparation meets opportunity kind of thing. If you are underprepared because you're not learning from foresight by doing full triage in organized chaos, if you're doing the opposite, and you're working in disorganized chaos, partial triage, learning from hindsight, you are very likely going to experience bad luck by accident, rather than good luck by design. And how do you invite good luck by design? We all experience luck. It's a lucky happenstance by which Jason and I met. And here's the cat again, Jason. Somebody left the door open. It's a lucky happenstance that Jason and I met. And how many times, Jason, do people, we all live life forward, but we understand it backwards. And we look backwards in life, and we have this procession of lucky moments and lucky encounters, out of which grew so much stuff. I've had them, and you've had them, I'm sure.
Yeah, for sure. And any leadership role, my career, your career, I mean, we're always reflective learning. We're always looking back and learning from on reflection, but changing that luck and becoming more in the diagnosing, deciding, analyzing, futuristic looking, that's where that luck changes.
Yeah. And so luck is huge in agility, everybody. I think you'll find that most leaders will say that in some way, shape, or form. Most authors will say that. In his last book, Great by Choice, Jim Collins said that. He talked about it isn't if luck will be a factor, it's only when luck will be a factor, and what return do you get on luck. So he introduced the concept of return on luck. You're going to have luck. The question is, when it shows up, how much can you leverage it, maximize it, drive into it, and make the most of it? Return on luck. So how do you experience good luck by design, everybody, that you invite by being in organized chaos, full triage, learning from foresight? Not bad luck by accident, which you invite by being in disorganized chaos, partial triage, learning from hindsight. And then the last one, Jason, is how do you change your relationship overall with the idea of a journey? And I talk about journey orientation, and how do you get even more acutely oriented to the unfolding longitudinal journey of your business, of your profession, of your career, of your life, frankly, and really understand how a journey unfolds macroscopically and microscopically. And I know you know this already, Jason. One of my favorite things to talk about in the flow of journey orientation is micro management. Everybody. And micromanagement has a bad reputation, doesn't it? And bad micromanagement should have a bad reputation. But everybody, any agile leader will tell you there are two kinds of micromanagement. And there's a very good kind called good micromanagement. And next time you get on a plane, you better hope that your pilot and co-pilot do a whole bunch of good micromanagement in that cockpit. They work through the checklist, they double check, they triple check. Every time there's a communication with air traffic control, they repeat back the instruction, and they make sure that they're fully on the same page with each other. And that's called good micromanagement. And there's just case study after case study after case study of books that have been written, and case studies about Alan Mulally, for instance, that did good micromanagement in the form of his weekly business plan review meetings. General Stanley McChrystal that did good micromanagement in the form of his team of teams, daily operations meetings, and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, good micromanagement, Jason. What do you think?
Well, and we've had these conversations. We talk to clients about this all the time. These, if you truly are going to change your relationship with these attributes, right? If you're going to get comfortable being uncomfortable and change your relationship with chaos and triage and luck, right? It's automatically going to change the way you view leadership.
Yeah, exactly.
You're going to have to lead differently.
Yeah. And how do you move to being even more than you already are, being an agile leadership presence in the face of VUCA? You are agile enough because you work in organized chaos and full triage, etc., that we've been through, to keep your journey in traction on the trajectory that you want. and stop it from decaying to the trajectory that you don't want. And back to where we started, conversation flow to cash flow. You show me a business with poor cash flow, and I will show you a business with poor conversation flow. And it really doesn't take long to show people that, look, everybody, you're just not talking about the right things in the right way at the right time. Why are you surprised that your conversation flow trajectory did that, decayed, and your cash flow trajectory followed it? You really shouldn't be surprised.
So Mike, kind of keeping along with the pilot analogy here, we've all heard it said, when you need a friend, it's too late to make one.
Yeah.
Right? So in relationship to the concepts and what we're talking about today, for any listener, any leader, any individual contributor, what advice would you give them about, in regards to that and the attributes and what we're talking about today?
Yeah, I love that phrase. When you need a friend, everybody, it's too late to make one. And you probably remember as well, Jason, that Captain Sully Sullenberger, after successfully doing a water ditching of the plane, I nearly said landing, but of course you can't use the word landing, a water ditching of the plane in the Hudson that day. He had I forget what it was exactly, but it was 2 or 3 minutes of an unfolding journey in which to get that right. And afterwards, what he said, well, yeah, but I've been making deposits in the bank account for 40 years. And on that fateful day, when I needed to make a massive withdrawal, I had enough in the bank account without going into the red. That's not a word for word description, but that's the essence of what he said. And so that's the idea, everybody, of making friends with before you need the friend. And agility is exactly like that. Make friends with agility now. Be Sully before you need it, because when you need a friend, it's too late to make one. And to do that, come on into the community, the One Advantage community of practice and Advantage peer groups. Read the books, Jason's book, read the ebook that we're about to come out with. Come on over and check out the online courses that we're developing. And
Mike, you got an article. You got an article on the myths of agility out there at MikeRichardson.live.
Yeah, so everybody, will put that in the show notes as well. One of the things that gets people stuck in the fragile leadership presence rather than agile leadership presence is that they subscribe to the myths of agility. So there's a little PDF you can download called The 5 Myths of Agility. That'll give you an entree to that. Those are also in the ebook that will be coming out soon. And so, hey, Jason, thanks for putting me in the hot seat. What do you want to say to everybody before we sign off here?
I also check out idealoutcomesinc.com and the One Advantage. It's easily found. I thought today was an enjoyable day. Thanks. I mean, I'm inspired. Yeah.
So remember, everybody, be an agile leadership presence, not a fragile leadership presence. Thanks for your interest, and Leo's in the previous podcast, everybody. If you want to go back and listen to part 1, please do so. Watch out for the ebook coming as well. Thanks for being here, everybody. We will see you next time.
Have a great week.
Thanks for listening to the One Advantage podcast. If you liked this episode, please consider helping us by rating us wherever you listen, spreading the word, having us as a guest on your podcast or webinar, and mentioning us in social media. Find us at the One Advantage podcast, where you can get more information about us and this episode. Thanks again for listening, and we look forward to more great episodes to come.